Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my fantasy reader mug and a honey and cinnamon latte. It's become one of my go-tos recently. So today's video is going to be my July reading wrap-up. Now to preface this, I did mention this in my book haul video, but I have been going through something and therefore my reading has been affected. I've just been kind of processing a lot of things and realizing some things and just going through a lot. Life changes, things I need to change, downsizing, just like a lot of things. So it's gonna be a little bit of a different month, and I know that majority, if not all of you, are not here for me to talk about nonfiction books. I read a lot of fantasy usually, but this month that is not really the case. I read a lot of nonfiction and kind of like cathartic things. So this is gonna be a weird month and I apologize for that, but I do want to share with you what I read in July. I did start When the Moon Hatched, but have not finished it, so maybe that gives you a little bit of hope. I was out of the country and I returned to the US, and when I returned, the first thing I read was It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lisa TerKeurst. This is a nonfiction book, and on the bottom it says, Finding Unexpected Strength When Disappointments Leave You Shattered. And I've had this book for a while. I bought it at a season of my life that I was going through and thought it would be really helpful for me, and I just never picked it up. And this kind of shift and things that have been going on in my life kind of pushed me to actually read this. And so I started listening to it and reading it kind of tandem. And this was extremely helpful for me. It was exactly what I needed. It was a lifeline. It was cathartic for me. It helped me kind of process some emotions that I was feeling. It helped put words to a lot of things. And this is a nonfiction Christian book. So if that's not your vibe, then, you know, take that with a grain of salt of what it could do for you. But I did think it was very helpful. On the back, it says, what do you do when God's timing seems questionable, his lack of intervention hurtful, and his promises doubtful? But it also goes through what to do when you've had hopes that are shattered, dreams that are shattered, things that aren't working out the way you thought they were going to, and how to kind of cope with that. So it was very helpful for me. I really appreciated the book. It's still something that I think about. And it kind of sent me in a spiral because this was so good and helpful for me that when it was over, I felt like there was a void that I had to fill. And so I started reading like all of her books, her backlist, and just a lot of things to kind of like scramble. So I read this, but then I immediately went into a fiction book, a fantasy book, which was Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This was, and I don't rate nonfiction books. It just feels weird to me. I don't know why, but I don't do it. So there's no ratings for those. I think it's because a lot of the time it's like stories of people's lives. I'm not gonna rate that. Anyway, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This was on my Buzzword book challenge, so I did get the challenge done for July, even though I've been very much struggling with reading fiction. So this is a Regency romance, but it's also fantasy. So like magic is in this world. There are fairies, fae in this world, and you're following the main character who essentially, her mother made a deal with a fairy long ago that she would promise him her firstborn child, and he finds her and is trying to take her soul, but gets interrupted in the process, and so she's left with half of a soul. And so I think it's also kind of presenting it as almost like a disability, or possibly like autism, like potentially trying to portray the character that way to express what it was like, because she doesn't understand a lot of social cues, but she also doesn't have emotion the way that she should. So she can be upset or know that she should be upset, but the feeling isn't there. It was really interesting how they kind of portrayed that with having half of a soul. Anyway, she's also in, Regency London situation, so she's trying to find a husband, as every young woman is in this time, and her cousin is there also, and she starts they have like a plot of who to set them up with, and she starts making friends with this other man who's going to help her solve some things, because she might have some ability to see the future or kind of like scry in a mirror. And so he kind of helps her decipher some things, and he's kind of intrigued by this, and they kind of start to form a bond. But Of course, there's more to the story than that, but this was actually very interesting. I liked the way it was done, but it wasn't my favorite. It's nothing like Emily Wilde's. I loved Emily Wilde so much. This one is okay, it's fine, it's good. It's just not on that level. It was cute, I liked the story. Like I said, the elements of having half of a soul were very interesting and done well. It just didn't wow me. It didn't blow me away like some others. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's not bad. Just a good kind of like middle ground book for me, but I did enjoy it. I gave this 3 stars. Back on the shelf for you. Some of these books I don't have copies of, but I also read Nothing Wasted, Struggling Well Through Difficult Seasons by Kim Patton. I picked this one up because I've been in a hard season and it just seemed like it would be helpful. When I first picked it up, I wasn't really feeling it and kind of put it down for a second and then picked it back up and finished it. If you are in a hard season as well, this may resonate with you. While a lot of this book did not, the principles and some of the ideas did resonate with me and were relatable. I couldn't resonate with the struggling of infertility portion because that's not something that's on my radar. So that's kind of a big portion of this, is her kind of struggling through wanting this, not having this, what that means for her and how it kind of was fulfilled in different ways, like adoption. But I could resonate with the pain of waiting for a dream, a prayer, what have you, to be answered. So it was helpful, but I also wasn't exactly maybe the target audience. But also it's not just about infertility, it's about many, many things and just how to walk through life during those moments. So if it sounds like it would be helpful for you, I would give it a shot. Again, knowing that all of these kind of have an undertone of Christianity in them. So it talks about God, talks about all of that stuff. I did read that. And then again, because I was just like in my Lisa TerKeurst void, I read her book Unglued, and it's making wise choices in the midst of raw emotions, which was helpful. It's not exactly what I was looking for, obviously, because that one book was, but I liked this book as well. And when it comes to having strong emotions and trying to handle them, this is helpful. Like, even if you're not going through something difficult, but you just have strong emotions and you don't really know how to handle those, this is helpful. Also therapy. But if you are not at that level or don't want to be in therapy for whatever reason, I think things like this can be helpful to just realize that this is a thing that happens. You're not alone. Like, this is a normal occurrence when you have high emotions, and maybe giving you some tools to handle them to see if that works before you take another step. I feel like after the first book that I read that was very helpful and relatable to me, I'm just trying, like I said, I'm just trying to read more of her books to be like, help, fill the void of the book that you left. Kind of like when you've read a book and you get in a reading slump and you just like want to read the backlist of the author. That's basically what happened here, except it's nonfiction. So that one was helpful. I did like it. Do with that what you will. These are kind of odd things to talk about because it's not very long because it's not fiction. So it's just like, I had a good time reading it. It was helpful for me and my personality. Like, I don't know what to tell you sometimes. And then I also read this last book by Christine Kane. She is a public speaker. I think she runs, what is it called? A23, A22, A21 campaign, or founded it. And it's to help women escape human trafficking. So she does a lot of really cool stuff. She's from Australia. Her story is kind of wild. She's a really interesting person. And she wrote this recent book. I've read one of her books before called Unstoppable, but she wrote this recently. It came out this year. And it's called Permission to Dream, How to Be Radically Resilient and Hopeful. And I listened to this and immediately went to try to find a copy of it. And she was actually doing this thing where she was giving away copies of the books for a donation. So like, do with it what you will, but you could pay like $1 and get it shipped to you. It was crazy. Anyway, which I think just says a lot about her and how she wants to help people. So I requested this copy because it was very useful for me. It has like a lot of notes in the back of things I wanted to keep track of. And it also has like questions for you to go through, which is why I wanted a physical copy of this. Like this, it has questions for reflection and stuff. It's a pretty small book. It's also pretty short, but it was very helpful and hopeful are the two kind of words that resonated as I was reading it. But on the back it says, no one else lights up the world like you do. That hope your soul holds despite the setbacks, that dream your mind remembers despite the questions, that purpose you know God has given you because he created you like no one else. In Permission to Dream, the activist Christine Kane empowers you to say yes to the vision God has for your life, whether you're trying to figure out what that vision is or simply need to push to follow it. Permission to Dream challenges you and equips you. The world needs you, you matter, and your purpose is bigger than you know. And again, this was just something that was very helpful for me and what I'm going through at the moment, with disappointments and just things that feel radically different and changing. So I've just been clinging to a lot of stuff. I know this is very weird than what I usually do. But I do read things like this on occasion. And right now I'm just kind of in a moment where this is what I'm focusing on and reading. And it's been good for me and helpful for me. I think if you're interested in these at all, you should give them a shot. Obviously, they might not be everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. We can also talk about dragons, you know? I also just finished another one of Lisa TerKeurst's books, but I technically finished it on the 1st of August, so I can't talk about it. My TBR for August is coming, so just stay tuned for that. I will be sprinkling in some fantasy again. Again, we all have days, we all have months, weeks, years, where things are different and we're going through things and we need to give ourselves space to heal and deal with that. So that's what I'm doing. July didn't look anything like I thought it was going to, but that's okay. I was still reading books. There was a part of me that was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally failing in this like whole thing, but I still read 5 books. It's not bad. I've said it like a million times. I know this was very different. Thank you for hanging in there and watching this if you did. If you're curious about any of this, if you'd like to discuss these things or similar things, please let me know down below. If you would like recommendations, I can give you some. Or if you just want to chat, leave me a comment down below. But those are all of the books that I read in July. Thank you so much for watching, but that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.